Hello everyone, we are back with a quick update video on the fully self-sustaining Tesla coil system. Organized up the workbench a little bit, refined the system a little further with tuning. We now have two inductors off of the full bridge rectifier. That's STTP-HR106 diodes that attach to the essential isolation capacitors that come off our L1 coil. The two isolation capacitors that come off the L1 coil in series that are at 44 nanofarads apiece are essential to harvesting the feedback energy from the system without dampening the Q factor of it that allows it to recharge its driving battery fully. So I have the oscilloscope here set up next to the voltmeter. Frequency is 1.55 megahertz, like I said in yesterday's video. Correct way to measure this circuit without impeding the power flow or dampening the Q factor is to make a loop of wire with your oscilloscope, loop it back on itself, set the probe to the highest sensitivity, and do auto detect. So that's how we're detecting the frequency. I have a lot of people asking me questions multiple times, including certain institutions saying what I'm doing is impossible and that this can't work, but at the end of the day, it absolutely can work because this is the suppressed physics of Nikola Tesla that institutions in academia work so hard to shut down, suppress, and destroy and turn the other nose at. We're dealing with wireless power phenomena that don't obey Ohm's law and don't obey Kirchhoff's current law because the system essentially is able to create a standing wave between the bottom of the coil and the top load capacitance. And the correct series capacitor installed on your ground line allows you to siphon in excess charge from the Earth that seems to be at a high frequency that rides along the planet of the Earth. It's a nearly undetectable energy, it seems, but when you connect the Earth ground, and it's a bright sunny day here, I'm not sure if the sparks will be visible, but they're very faint blue etheric sparks that show you the system is pulling in charge from the Earth ground. And something neat you can do too is if I take this fluorescent tube, you'll really see the Earth energy flowing through the Earth ground up into the L2 coil junction. See if I can do this. I might not show it on camera because we're in the most energy efficient mode on the system. Yeah, it's having trouble showing it on camera, but it'll probably do it with a neon bulb. My neon bulb is over here. I swear I thought I had everything set up right, and my neon bulb is missing. But anyway, back to the system, getting back to how it's fully self-sustaining. So what's occurring is a standing wave builds up between the bottom of the coil and the top load capacitance. The voltage peak of the standing wave is at the top load. The current peak of the standing wave is at the ground junction connection. And due to that, it pulls in charge from the Earth. As you see, if I remove the Earth connection, our power consumption increases. As you see on the analog amp meter that is installed in series with our transmitter. Good look at the waveforms on the oscilloscope. I'm trying to clear up all the questions with the system. So far from all my testing, once the system is tuned, it is fully self-sustaining, meaning the isolated DC output off of the L1 coil that's isolated via two series capacitors that are 44 nanofarads each that go to the utmost energy efficient zero loss Schottky full bridge diode rectifier with the correct capacitors and diodes installed. I mean not diodes, inductors. It can recharge its driving battery. And I also installed SiC diodes off the battery to do some experiments. So what occurs is the recharge part of the circuit connects directly to the battery. The transmitter is run off of those two SiC diodes that come off the battery in a chain, because I'm trying to isolate the system as much as possible. So what occurs in the system is it's a standard Slayer exciter driven Tesla circuit built with the utmost efficient components you can get your hands on, being zero loss SiC diodes, and we're using a ST1309 transistor. With this type of technology, you want the smallest, highest quality transistor possible that gives you the cleanest, most abrupt switching that has minimal internal capacitance. So what this system can do is, when it's in self-sustaining mode, it can always give you wireless power in the far field as a bonus, and it always keeps its driving battery recharged between 13.39 volts and 13.40 volts DC, which is incredible. I have not put this battery on any kind of charger in probably 4 days now since I built this system. So this system never loses its charge due to the earth-ground connection. I'll hook the system back up. We'll see it come back on. If I back some stuff up, because I'm close to this system, if I back up and I avoid interfering with it, because the closer I am to this system, the more I impede its ability to operate properly. But the further I am away from it, the better it'll operate, and the quicker it'll hit its equilibrium point, which is 13.40 volts DC. So we got the scope showing here. It does like to change its mode of operation sometimes, and you have to adjust the primary coil on the system. I've had a million questions with it. I've had people telling me, asking me, how is it able to do that? How can you create such magic-like wireless power effects at distance? How is the system capable of lighting these lights without putting a load on the transmitter? Like, when this little guy is lit and tuned at distance, it places no form of electrical load on the transmitter at all. And in fact, the heavier you wirelessly load the transmitter system at distance, and when in resonance, actually decreases your power consumption. So I can show a very interesting effect here. And if I were to clean up all these leads properly and twist them together, I would probably be even more energy efficient and probably hit 13.50 on my battery recharge. But what I wanted to show again is, if I run an 18 watt 12 volt DC incandescent light bulb, my current consumption to the transmitter drops. I hope you're seeing that effect on the meter. Okay, as you see, when I run the light bulb, my current consumption drops. And I'm going to try and film this one-handed, change my view, my angle here. So I'm running a light bulb, an incandescent. There we go, that's the effect. Current consumption on the meter drops. So the transmitter somehow consumes less current when you load down the L1 isolation output, which is very interesting and very odd. Not exactly sure why that effect occurs. The theories behind it are the system is acting like an energy efficient heat pump, and the more you load it, either resonantly or wirelessly in the far field, the more efficient the system becomes by sucking in power from that earth connection. And this earth ground point goes right to my heater. So I'm trying to answer all the questions with the system. Build it as high quality as you can. Use the absolute highest quality components you can get. This heatsink is an 18 by 8, it's a 100 by 100 millimeter by 18 millimeter heatsink. I don't know what would happen if you tried a different heatsink. I've had these heatsinks for so long and I've got the system tuned up. You should replicate it with the exact same heatsink I use, just to replicate it perfectly and not have any weirdness happen. The L1 coil is 8 gauge stranded wire barely 4 wraps. I tried to make this circuit as neat as possible, but it looks messy superficially because of all the advanced techniques I had to use. It's basically compounded simplicity on the system to make the switching with the transistor nearly instantaneous and create avalanche effects between the base and emitter through a BYV28E avalanche version of a diode. I also added a bleed resistor between the base and emitter with a snubber capacitor in parallel to further speed up transistor switching and make it near instantaneous. The goal of the device is to create such abrupt switching that it pulls in extra power from the ambient environment, similar to Don Smith's theories and Eric Dollard's theories. So L1 coil, 8 gauge wire. L2 coil, the actual Tesla coil that magnifies the voltage, is high quality 24 gauge solid magnet wire. The L3 coil is 2-inch long 24 gauge Litz wire, and that's responsible for making a massive Q factor with the device. The Litz wire is 25/38 24 gauge Litz. We'll see if we can get our frequency back and detected. Frequency is 1.5 megahertz on the system. If I can get this probe close enough and lock in the oscilloscope, we'll see a 1.55 megahertz signal. As you see here, it's just the more things you have near the circuit will impede its ability to operate properly. So that's why I'm trying to get the signal locked on with the oscilloscope and move it backwards from it. So I'm trying to answer all questions with the system. The system excels in self-sustainment mode, being the zero loss DC rectified power that comes from the isolated L1 output that has 2 series capacitors coming off the L1 coil. I didn't have a 44 nanofarad capacitor, so I had to put 2 22 nanofarads in parallel off each leg to get 44 nanofarads of capacitance between each leg. So I'll disconnect it again. We'll see that we always maintain an equilibrium charge state in the system. And if it drops 0.1 volt, it's because I was near it, probably detuning it. But if I back up and just let the system be, it will absolutely go back up to its equilibrium point. So if I back the scope off a little bit from it, and if I can wirelessly load it with this fluorescent tube. Okay, we're wirelessly loading it in the far field with the fluorescent tube. You almost can't even tell that tube is lit due to the sunlight streaming into our room. But the tube is lit, and there's strange energy flows that occur in the tube, almost like you can see the standing wave. But I guarantee you, if I let it just sit here for a moment or two, and I'm backed up from it, and I disconnect it, we'll hit our voltage peak again of 13.38 or 39 volts DC. So I think I answered all the questions with the system. I'm trying to keep this video under 15 minutes. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon, support us. Our MTech research company is open source. We share everything we learn with you guys. I'll disconnect the system again. See our equilibrium point. Get it going again. And we'll see what happens. Get it loaded down. Okay, that tube is lit. Can't really tell it's lit because there's so much sunlight streaming into the room, it drowns it out. But, yeah, the system is remarkable. My private research AI says what's occurring is a standing wave occurs between the bottom of the coil, with its amperage peak at the bottom of the coil, and its voltage peak of the wave at the top of the coil, or the top load. And the system is able to siphon in charge from the earth-ground connection, similar to a heat pump. So this system Project Tesla was the challenge of building a Slayer exciter-driven Tesla coil, jumping back into them, and building it as energy efficiently as possible with the latest cutting-edge components that have zero loss to them. And the results were way better than I expected. So what this system can do when it's in this feedback mode of operation is it'll essentially run itself forever and recharge its driving battery until a component fails. And you can get, as a bonus, far-field wireless power effects that don't drain the system in any way. So people ask the practical use of it. That's the practical use. It is a fully self-sustaining energy source that'll give you free, loadless wireless power in the far field, while its isolated back EMF output that gets a boost in power from the tuned earth-ground connection recharges its driving battery. So that's the use for it. When that little receiver light is lit, there is zero load placed on the transmitter system. I hope I'm answering all the questions people have. Had her scope set up. I don't know why that shut off. See if we can get this back on. People love seeing the scope reading. And it's, again, like I said, 1.5 megahertz on the scope. We almost want the waveform to look like a jagged spike or a vertical wall. That's the ideal waveform for this system. And our fluorescent tube is lit in the far field. I'll see if I can zoom in on it. The ambient light flooding into the room is drowning out the ability to see it, but that tube is lit. Nighttime demonstrations are best with this system. And we'll disconnect again and see our equilibrium point. And the equilibrium point always floats between 13.37 to 13.44 volts DC. I have never dropped below 13.37 volts DC with this system, depending on how well it's tuned. And as you see, we immediately rebounded back up to 3.8. And the key to making this work is the slide adjustable primary. I'll see if I can adjust that a little better and get this going. Okay, so we're back now. Just watching what the system does, how it behaves. All coils are wound in the right direction. Give you a good look at how they are wound. For some reason, if you wind the coils in the opposite direction, it will not work. I don't know why. If all the coils are wound to the left direction instead of the right, the system won't ever oscillate, which is very strange, and it will make you want to tear your hair out trying to get it to work. But you have to wind all coils to the rightward direction, as you see here. And I just use zip ties on the primary, so it's slide adjustable. And ideally, an ideal Tesla coil is as tall as it is wide to magnify the Q factor of the system. So the reason we use a slightly longer L2 for voltage magnification is to create a high voltage, and we send that high voltage into a very high quality extra L3 Litz coil that's as tall as it is wide. And that Litz coil is what creates our powerful wireless fields. It magnifies the energy in the system, along with our capacitive top load that siphons in ambient charge from the environment by acting as a waveguide for the standing wave. When you get it tuned right, the voltage peak of the standing wave is at the sphere, and the current peak of the standing wave is at the bottom of the system. That pulls in energy from the earth. And if you're having trouble tuning it, add the correct capacitor. That is a 10 picofarad capacitor, 10 picofarad, in series with the ground line. So keep in mind this system is on and always consumes between 60 to 140 milliamps depending on its mode of operation. It always consumes that to run itself. It consumes that amount of magnetic current or power to run itself. When it comes to the energy synthesis or supposed overunity phenomenon. I have never been able to measure it directly. I think the overunity phenomenon is an emergent-based property that takes effect when the battery is hooked back up to the system in feedback mode. I think the internal plates of the battery play a role with the resonance of the system, because something that's very interesting is the battery. According to Ken Wheeler's theories, a battery is a dielectric torsion box, and the battery acts as a re-emitter of the wireless power field too that you can see here, which is very impressive. So the battery also acts as a re-emitter of energy. So the plates in the battery are definitely playing some type of resonant role in the system here. So in terms of raw over unity, adding a current meter going back into the battery from the resonant feedback, I've never been able to detect raw over unity. But the strange thing is, once I keep my wire leads relatively clean and I get the system properly slide adjusted, the feedback always keeps the driving battery recharged, which is very interesting. It's like the energy synthesis phenomenon that Eric Dollard theorized is an emergent-based effect of the system when everything's properly tuned. So we got that tubelet. Try and go over again how it's wired. I have a nice thick, I have two thick 16 gauge wires in parallel going between the collector and the top of our L1 coil to really give us minimal loss and ring the L1 as abruptly as possible, like a sharp, violent bell. So you really want as minimal loss in the system as you can. I had to add right there a 0.44 UF capacitor between the negative power rail and the positive input to the system. That capacitor right there allows for the transistor to sip high frequency energy to feed itself without drawing from the battery. That's another form of regenerative back EMF the system can draw from. The parallel capacitors, which are again 0.44 UF, in parallel on each SiC diode isolation unit. That's again on the negative input and the positive input to the system are what really helps it. I added a reverse bias SiC diode as well with a series resistor that's 100K to add an avalanche energy effect, and all that does is get your recharge voltage higher into the 13.40 range to 13.42 range. The system will work without most of the improvements I added to it, but your voltage equilibrium point on the recharge will be lower. All the little minor improvements I made get that voltage recharge higher due to compounded simplicity, due to Eric Dollard's theories, and due to Ken Wheeler's theories, as well as causing the transistor to switch instantly with minimal loss. And this video is going on longer than I wanted, but I want to explain everything fully. We'll see our equilibrium point on the system, and it should say 3.8 any moment. So back to 3.8. Hook it back up. I'll try and get the ideal tuning with this thing too. See if we can get ourselves ideally tuned. And just having the scope near it too slightly detunes it. Even the multimeter hooked up will detune it. The thing that's very interesting is I can also build an identical receiver coil, put it at great distance, tap wireless power off it essentially for free, trickle charge batteries, do what we want with it. Or you can run a 120 volt AC micro inverter board and run a 10 watt LED bulb for a time, which I'll show. So, micro inverter board. Hook it up. As you see, I want to show this too. When I run a load, my amperage, the current, the amperage to the transmitter drops, which is very interesting. So, the charge accumulation is always real, always stays. Very interesting. This was the old untuned coil with the system. And this will even blow your mind. We'll make this video go long. Why not? People should watch long videos and learn something. On a 40-watt incandescent. And now I'm heavily taxing the system, yet there's no degradation on the wireless power effects, as you see here. I'm loading the system, and it's going to take a long time to recharge its driving battery now back up to 13.38. The rate of energy synthesis in the system needs to ideally be calculated. Those equations don't exist yet. Now I'll disconnect the micro inverter board. So, like I said, what's occurring is when the system is in self-sustaining feedback mode, it always recharges its driving battery back up to a point that's between 13.37 and 13.44 volts DC. That seems to be the equilibrium lock point. I don't quite understand all the effects of the system. The battery recharge effect seems to be an emergent-based property in this specific system. I've never measured raw over unity output from the system on an actual meter, but raw over unity is implied due to the amount of loadless wireless power effects we can get while the system is in full self-sustainment feedback mode. So I hope that clears up a few things. And when you tap this wireless power, there's no degradation on the system at all, which is very interesting. So we'll see what our voltage is peaking up at. It always recharges, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. And we have our tubelet with the strange energy streams in it. According to Ken Wheeler's theories, I'm witnessing the counter-spatial point of the system. I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can actually see the standing wave of energy flowing through the fluorescent tube at the break point, where the standing wave has its breaking point, right at the top of the L2 and the bottom of the L3 Litz coil, right at the center point of the system. You can see that in yesterday's video, where you will actually see standing waves in that big fluorescent tube that's lit, splitting apart in the tube. So what this tells us, and all this information tells us, is due to zero loss switching components and how high of a quality we can build certain things, humanity is on the brink of super simple, compounded, simplicity-based systems that are true free energy. Humanity, I'll make this claim, humanity is on the brink of free energy due to AI assistance. The agenda that the elites are pushing, where you will own nothing and be happy, and live in a miserable subscription-based world, in a small high-rise apartment, away from the earth, ungrounded, being unhealthy, eating garbage, slop food, just being an endless consumer of junk content. There's basically going to probably be two societies that form soon. There's going to be a great schism, where people who develop this tech are going to break away from the people who are stuck paying 5 or 10K a month in rent in a big city, driving their electric vehicles that have built-in kill switches. But then again, who knows if society will truly go that route? Things do always seem to get exponentially worse over time and more expensive as a species progresses into the future. Everyone's quality of life should become better due to cheaper manufacturing. Utility bills should significantly drop in price, but we're seeing the opposite happen. We're seeing the cost of everything skyrocket due to our devalued dollar, the fact we just print money out of thin air and it's not backed by any kind of value. If you do a lot of deep research, guys, it's quite frightening what the future is going to be like. You probably have a 5 or 10 year window from now to get out of it and make moves to get yourselves as independent as possible. The advice I would give to you all is don't believe anything any mainstream institution tells you. They're all pushing an agenda. Unless you're studying to become a doctor, lawyer, or something in the medical field, college is an absolute waste of time and will destroy you and scam you of your money, and they will just push agendas down your throat that aren't even accurate. So unless you can go to college on a scholarship, it's absolutely not worth it. It'll destroy you. Don't chase that worthless piece of paper that AI and automation will take from you, and you'll be stuck paying an unforgivable student loan debt that'll haunt you your whole life. So yeah, I think the state of our world will continue to exponentially get worse. We have a birth rate crisis. Most young men do not want to start families and have kids because most of the women, well, I shouldn't say most, but a good chunk of Western women, um, let's just say, the college has brainwashed a good chunk of them, and a lot of red pill philosophies talk about that. But nonetheless, I'm showing this system off, telling you how to make moves to become independent. Um, the person living in an apartment stuck in a big city will be the person that is suffering the most in the coming years. That's what I predict. And we're already kind of seeing that now. Crime rates in big cities will skyrocket. You'll face major affordability problems in big cities. So to make moves to protect yourself, live well below your means, try and live out in the country, be as independent from the government as possible, have a wood stove, stack up plenty of wood, get your own simple solar panel system, do it yourself, or even perfect and develop this self-sustaining wireless power tech as a bonus, if you have the extra money to do so. The parts in it are quite expensive, and as I'm talking about the world and doing this world rant, I'm allowing my driving battery to recharge from the feedback. So all this ties together. All of this ties together. I heavily implore you guys to check out Ken Wheeler and Eric Dollard's theories on YouTube. Ken Wheeler, also known as the Angry Photographer, and Eric Dollard has his own channel. Watch Eric Dollard's energy synthesis videos, or his lectures. Very enlightening. There's even classified and suppressed forms of electrical engineering that they don't want you to know. So, something I want to mention too is, do you think a guy like Nikola Tesla, who had so many countless inventions and was mocked so heavily by the establishment back in his day, do you think he was wrong when he said his transmitter system was fully self-sustaining and could power the world from one transmitter system? No, I think the world was terrified of what he discovered, and due to extreme rampant corporate greed, especially back then, and even worse now, they shut his project down and wanted to hide it from the world, and they want to keep you dumbed down through unhealthy food, through constant over medications, and constant slop on social media to distract you, with dopamine flooding your brain. To beat them, be as independent as possible. Don't keep an open or closed mind. Keep a wise mind with a gatekeeper that is well tempered. Um, Build and test things for yourself. Understand certain physics principles. For example, understand negative resistance. The equivalent in physics would be negative friction. In electrical engineering, we can make things with negative resistance, which is absolutely phenomenal. So, research negative resistance. Build the system exactly the way I show you, with all zero loss components, SiC diodes, and zero loss diodes on the output. So we'll see what our charge is now. Always recovers, as you see. And I heavily tax the system with a 40-watt load briefly. What's running it is a little 6 amp hour, 12.8 volt DC Life-E PO4 battery, 76.8 watt hours. And keep in mind, I have had this system going for 3 days without ever being on a battery charger. It runs off its own self-feedback from the isolated L1 output. What I'm going to have to do next is build a separate perfected unit, probably set it up in the summertime in my shed, my work shed, and live stream it, seeing how long it can operate indefinitely. So, as you see, we always maintain our voltage lock. It'll probably flash 3/8 soon, despite the transmitter consuming current to create those effects. So, absolutely incredible. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon, support us. And the advice I'm giving to you is the advice of a realist. No one in our society is coming to save you except yourself, and life is about to get exponentially more difficult for most people, including the middle and lower classes. The upper class is going to try and siphon and suck out as much wealth as they can from those classes. And we'll hook this back up. Now, I don't talk about politics too much. I don't support any of them. I don't even vote anymore. I think that all of it is a show. They all, at the end of the day, they all go in back rooms and do secret backroom deals to benefit themselves. Team Red and Team Blue are both wings of the same bird, and no matter who you vote for, life always gets more expensive for you. So, yeah, I don't think it matters who you vote for. Life always gets more miserable and more expensive for the average middle class person. And a quality life keeps getting more and more unaffordable. I mean, look at what the price of precious metals did in a brief time period, how much they skyrocketed, how devalued our dollar became. So, food for thought. Everything I'm saying is backed by facts. You can't trust one institution anymore. All they will do, I would actually view most college institutions as predatory now. They're set up to mind control you, put you into debt slavery, and pump you out with a belief system that's not true. So, take that with what you will for the information. And like I said, the only people who should go to college are people who have scholarships to go, that are getting it for virtually free, or are going for something like in the medical field, a doctor, a lawyer, something like that. But anything you can use your hands with to build or make money in this world, you're better off. Um, and yeah, that's that. Bit of my 2 cents on things. We'll disconnect this again. Oh, and the other funny thing too is if you think we have enough lithium in the world to power all these electric vehicles they want, not to mention our old, outdated power grid. If you think our old, outdated, archaic power grid can recharge all these electric vehicles too, all these delusional elites who are rich, who live in their own little reality that don't understand how the world works, and they live in their little gated communities, they're in for a hard reality check. We don't have the infrastructure at all to run all these electric vehicles. And the whole green energy scam, do you know how much lithium and how much of the environment we're going to destroy and pollute mining that lithium? Like, the world is such a massive joke right now, you can't even make it up. Not to mention all the illegal immigrants flooding in to most Western countries, I should say, absolutely destroying Western countries, committing crimes, doing atrocious things. And I don't usually talk about politics on this channel, but I'm just giving you guys my 2 cents with how bad things are. And things are only going to keep getting worse until the world hits a breaking point, especially with what's going on in the UK. Like, the UK is falling apart rapidly, and that tube is lit. I want to see if I can show those energy streams in it. I'm not sure if that's capturing, because the sunlight is so bright in here, drowning it out. But nonetheless, I think I have the system perfectly tuned. Disconnect again, see what we got for a charge on the battery. Yeah, we're breaching that 13.38 point again. Resting point again, we're almost there. So you kind of have to do these long videos to show everything. And keep in mind, I did heavily tax the system running a 40-watt bulb. The system excels at, like I said, self-sustaining itself and recharging its own driving battery up to its equilibrium point. But yeah, I hope I summed everything up perfectly. Gave you guys my 2 cents. I hope you all are staying happy, healthy, and well. My advice to you all would be live as minimally as possible. I should say live as minimally as possible. Live well below your means. Don't be stupid and chase flashy materialistic items. Having money saved up or money invested in stocks that pay you dividends is the best feeling in the world. Enjoy the simple things in life. Be with your family more if you are lucky enough to have them. Enjoy your days off. Anything the government tells you, do the opposite, because they're inherently evil and exist to govern stupid, ignorant people. And not to mention, at their core, they're extremely corrupt, especially with all that Epstein file crap. Like, oh my god. I think they said 80 or 90% of the U.S. government has to be kicked out of office with how much they discovered in the Epstein files. And most of it is heavily censored still. Absolutely insane. Like I said, the whole world's a clown show. Everything people told you in the past to do for society, don't do. You can't do anymore. It'll destroy you and kill you and put you into debt and make you a slave. You can't do it at all. So live well below your means. Get a wood stove. Get proficient in firearms. Practice your amendments. Grow your own food. Have your own backup power systems. Be as independent as possible, and have a lot of kids. That'll piss the elites off. Don't do a word those idiots tell you who are disconnected from reality, live in their gated communities, don't have a clue how the world works. A lot of them even inherited their wealth and want to control the world with their delusions. So the problem is when someone's born into that much wealth and they have no challenges in life, they create their own internal challenges and project it onto the world and create misery. So that's what we're witnessing. And that's why so many of their children are born gender confused. And I don't usually talk about all this stuff, but I figured I should. You all know down to your core it's true. And something else too is a wise person is offended when you lie to them, and a fool is offended when you tell them the truth. So let that sink in. Most of our world is becoming emotion run and not merit based anymore, and that's why it's crumbling so rapidly. So, it is what it is. Best you can do is make moves to be as independent as possible. And while I'm doing all this talking and giving you my 2 cents, I'm allowing the driving battery to recover from the tax we put on it while the system is still running itself, consuming a 60 milliamps of current. So I'll disconnect it again and show you our resting voltage. And I'll guarantee you we'll flash 3.8. It's like the system doesn't even consume any charge, despite giving you wireless power. As a bonus, as you see, we flash right up at 3.8. So I don't like to make these videos go on longer than an hour because I run out of memory on my phone. That kills the battery. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon. Follow Eric Dollard, follow Ken Wheeler. Be safe, be happy, be as independent as you can from all systems of control they want to put on you. My 2 cents on nuclear fusion, people ask me for that, is I think nuclear fusion is the biggest scam in human history, and there's facts to prove this. Anyone who really discovers the key to low energy fusion reactions is either bought out, suppressed, or even killed. Commercial fusion, especially in the main scientific industry, is the biggest fucking joke in human history. They use it as an endless crutch for infinite funding. Plus, do you think, with how corrupt our society is and the way it's going, and our skyrocketing energy bills due to mega AI data centers, and the fact all these corrupt companies want you to pay more so their people can get paid like $150 an hour to work for these companies, do you think cheap energy is in the playbooks for them to give to you, the consumer? Absolutely not. These people have backroom deals with the elites, and they want to crush you at every angle, being higher utility bills, higher groceries, an unsustainable economy. And these people, fusion research will never, ever work. Mark my words on that. It will never work. Or if they do get it to work, it'll be as a big experiment in a lab, and they'll never ship out the energy for people to use. Mark my words on that. Fusion power will never, ever work. It is a scam designed to get endless funding. Think about all the billions and billions they wasted on fusion, when if you perfect this stuff, and if you research Moray valve energy technology, if you were to just perfect any of this stuff, the planet would be so much better, so much more efficient, because it's in electricity's very nature for everything to be free. For example, you can have an unlimited amount of people tune into a radio station and not bog down the radio signal in any way. And the original radios used to be crystal radios that were powered from the signal itself. And if you got the tuning right on your crystal radio, you would basically get free power from the radio station without loading it down. And that's what sparked Thomas Henry Moray to develop his Moray valve energy machine. That gated in this charge and ran stone cold and produced him tons of power. And it worked everywhere. It worked in a mine shaft. It worked underwater in caves. It worked in the middle of nowhere. His Moray valve energy machine. So, yeah. As you see, we breached the 3.7 charge barrier when the system was on. It always slowly recharges. And what made it possible is the compounded simplicity in the system. People tell me I use a lot of word salad, but you're in for a hard reality check. If you get into anything, any advanced field of study, you're in for a lot of word salad. Try and be an architect without hearing word salad. Be an electrical engineer without hearing word salad. Learn about AC, phase angles, resistances, impedances, reactances, negative resistance, no loss components. Anything you pursue with a passion, you're in to learn word salad. And notice how our battery went up in charge from running. So, see how long we can keep this video going. I'm offering my 2 cents on things. I know a lot of people don't like to hear the ranting. Some people do, some don't. But the ranting kind of ties together all this stuff you should be doing. You should be making tons of moves in life to be as independent as possible. I also fully believe, too, most people should have a mission statement in life and read it and say it to themselves. For example, the mission statement of MTech is to use all the theories provided to us, along with our private research AIs, to fully develop wireless power technology to the absolute pinnacle we can, and to share it with the world and you guys. And due to the power of the internet, the power of private research AI, and the power of zero loss switching components and negative resistance components that give you ab extra emergent based effects and phenomena when in resonance, should be able to achieve that. So yeah, the system is very impressive. And if you think I'm using big words, I'm absolutely not. Put down the slop, get off social media, read some books, or better yet, even listen to podcasts in your ear. I learned a lot of stuff just from listening to a podcast while doing something else. Be as healthy as you can, eat good food, exercise. Don't just be a consumer of slop. Have a mission statement in life. Try and be productive. Learn some things. There's no limit to what you can build or what you can achieve. The elites want to keep you pushed down, suppressed, distracted. In social media, too, it has gotten so disgusting. Like, if you scroll it, when I scroll through social media now, which is probably maybe once or twice a month, I feel repulsed off of what I see. Like, there's absolutely such polarizing content on it, and that's done on purpose to keep people repulsed, oppressed, and polarized with each other. Because these big powers that be always want constant division with each other, constant distraction, and you can really see those standing waves flowing in the tube now, because a cloud moved outside and made the ambient light a little dimmer. So you see at that standing wave junction point between the top of that L2 and the bottom of the L3, see how there's that standing wave junction point? You can literally see the standing wave flowing in the fluorescent tube. Hope that camera's capturing that. So this long video is demonstrating to you the system in full self-sustainment mode. I'm showing you the standing wave effect in the fluorescent tube. I'm giving you life advice. I'm telling you how to be free through compounded simplicity. I'm telling you to never trust anything the government tells you. And don't even get me started on the, it starts with a V and ends with an E, and it happened during COVID. Let's just say there's a lot of COVIDiots. I've known a lot of people personally that died from a so-called procedure. Had strokes, heart attacks. The core rule of ancient medicine is if you don't need to put something in your body, don't put something in your body. And for those who go, oh, you're crazy, you're an vax extremist. Like, no, I'm not. Fully believe in the valid science behind them, but there was something majorly messed up with the COVID shot. Let's just say that. There was something really corrupt, nefarious, and messed up with that specific shot. I'm a person who is in alignment with natural order, simplicity, compounded simplicity, metaphysics. And for all the physicists who are crying about this system, I'm sorry, but it absolutely works. It siphons in charge from the environment. Something else, too, is a lot of people go, what do you mean the theory of relativity is wrong? Well, yeah, it's not technically that it's wrong. It's that it's making a correct observation with an incorrect conclusion. You're not witnessing the theory of relativity. You're witnessing etheric drag or electromagnetic retardation. And Ken Wheeler really talks about that in depth. You should check out his channel. So, this system is running in self-sustainment mode. The fact the fluorescent tube is lit at distance actually improves the system further, aiding our battery recharge, which sounds fully counterintuitive. I don't fully have all the answers for why that happens, but it does. This is the best system I've ever built. It is fully self-sustaining and blows me away. We'll see what our battery charge is at. 13.38. Dare I say we'll peak at 13.39 soon, despite always consuming current to operate the transmitter. So people go, where is the excess power coming from? Where is that charge coming from? The ground connection. The excess power, like Don Smith says, is coming from the correctly tuned ground connection that goes to my heater. And the correct capacitor in series, 10 picofarad, was essential for tuning it. So if you build this system and struggle to tune it, add the correct low-value capacitor in series with the ground line between 1 picofarad to 150 picofarad. You'll have to really check. And all these little simple additions I added to the circuit, they increase my voltage recharge equilibrium point to 13.42 or 43 at the most. The system always recharges back up to 13.39 volts DC, which is just incredible. I'll try and give you a good look at all the components. I kept all my leads as short and thick as possible. 22K carbon film biasing resistor. I used all carbon film resistor components in this. You don't want to use any wire wound resistors for RF applications due to the loss factor. You want to always use carbon film or metal film. And like I said, the key to getting this system working was to use the correct isolation capacitors in series off the L1 coil that then go to a zero loss full bridge rectifier with the correct capacitor installed to store charge and the correct inductors off of the rectifier. And I'll tell you the exact inductor value so I don't screw it up. It is a 3.3 UH inductor. That's the one I used. And I'll show you our raw feedback output that's going back into our battery. See if I can disconnect this without causing a problem. Okay, so this is our raw feedback power that comes out of the isolated L1 output. Extremely bright. This is the isolated back EMF power output that comes out of the L1 output. And as you see, this is the negative resistance effect. The more heavily I load the light, the less current the system consumes to operate. And due to the fact we are not in resonant feedback mode anymore, the battery will drain in charge. And we are rapidly draining in charge on the battery. So I'll hook that feedback back up. And notice the feedback, the resonant feedback connects directly to the battery. I'll show you the sparked output too of the resonant feedback, and I risk blowing my diodes doing this, but this is the power of the resonant feedback. Notice how if I dead short the resonant feedback, my current consumption on the transmitter drops to nothing. Dead short my resonant feedback. Negative resistance effect takes over. We consume nearly no current on the transmitter, but yet we still have trace amounts of wireless power, which will blow your mind. So I shorted out the resonant feedback output, and my current consumption dropped to nearly nothing. What is that, maybe 2 or 3 milliamps? But yet we still have wireless power, and our driving battery does not like that. It is draining in charge somehow. So I'll add my resonant feedback again back to the system, and we will immediately recharge. So I'm going to probably title this video Long Tests and My 2 cents. I don't think that's accurate. I have to get closer. There we go. That's probably accurate. It should be 1.55 megahertz. Yep, there we go. Okay. Capture those weird standing wave effects again, but the sun's coming out again, so I don't think we can. So yeah, sometimes you need long videos to demonstrate and display everything. I'm showing off everything. I know I talked a lot to explain everything. A little bit of ranting in my 2 cents about the way the world's going. I hope everyone's doing good, doing okay. Trying to find joy in life where they can. Try and be a builder, have a mission statement in life. Build something if you can. Try and create, see what you can do. And never underestimate the power of your own 2 hands and human ingenuity. If they tell you it can't be done, it most certainly can be done. You have to understand certain principles at first, and you have to build it with compounded simplicity. And whatever device you're building, due to compounded simplicity, will have ab-extra and emergent-based properties to it. So, yeah, that's that. And we're going to end the video soon. See what our charge is at. 13.37. Let it go a little longer from the screwing around I did. We will hit 3.8 again. So you can adjust this just mildly. If I back up, I'm going to back way up, because the further I am from this, the quicker it'll recharge. Because just me sitting near it recording impedes its operation. I interfere with the high Q of the system by being close to it. So the further I am, the quicker it reaches its equilibrium points. So I backed up. I'm showing you everything. Give it a minute or two and I'll show you the charge on it. And yeah, I encourage everyone to replicate this system exactly the way I'd show and demonstrate. Have patience with it. You'll have to give it a lot of fine-tuning to always achieve a high equilibrium recharge point on the battery. In theory, you could drive this thing off of a 96 volt or 120 volt DC battery bank, or maybe even a 140 volt DC battery bank, high voltage battery, and the wireless power effects would become so extreme. And if you upgraded your diodes correctly, it should always recharge itself. On top of having ridiculously powerful wireless power fields at distance that could run you loads for free and recharge external batteries to run a big AC inverter in theory for free. And the earth-ground connection is what allows it to be fully self-sustaining. The power that gets sucked up is made useful due to the isolated output on the L1. So we're sucking up power into the L2, and the L1 coil transforms that power and makes it useful to always recharge our driving battery. So we'll see, boom, right back to 3.8. Fully recovered. And again, I can run that 10 LED, 10 watt, 120 volt AC LED briefly. I have to find a way to somehow pulse the output so fast the AC doesn't feel it, which would be interesting. So now I'm going to have to design some type of hyper-efficient exotic AC circuit that has a very rapid pulsed 10 watt output. Or maybe I could even just master this system, run it off of a higher voltage DC battery, and have so much power in the loadless wireless power field, I could recharge an external battery at distance from a tuned receiver coil that then runs an inverter, while the main transmitter system, due to its isolated L1 feedback, always keeps its driving battery fully recharged. So that's another thing we could do. And the fact I'm further away from it now and detuning it less, it should recover its charge quicker, as you see, locked in at 13.38. This system locks the fuck in, which is amazing. So we'll connect it back up again. And you can run this system 24/7 until the components degrade. It will never lose its charge. And again, a special thank you to Ken Wheeler, Eric Dollard, and Nikola Tesla. Always stay creative. There's no limit to what you can create. Get this thing back in resonance. And it's being picky. And you see how the effects bloom at distance? So there's a standing wave peak. And for all those idiots that tell you, oh, a Tesla coil's power isn't useful. No, you're an idiot. I'm sorry to tell you that, but you're an idiot who believed mainstream academic puke garbage. You're an idiot. You didn't learn it correctly. What makes it useful is you have to capture the back EMF output from the L1 using the correct isolation capacitors in series off the L1. So for all those idiots in academia going, oh, you can't get usable voltage and current out of a Tesla coil system. Yeah, you can. If you build it right, yeah, you can. Tesla coil was not designed to create big stupid sparks. It was designed to be a energy plant that's self-sustaining and creates magic-like loadless wireless power effects in a big bubble around itself. And that there's so many misconceptions too with Tesla coils that it's incredible. It'll blow your mind. But again, it's all part of the big misinformation agenda to try and distract you from the truth. The biggest offense in our society today is to tell the truth. So for those of us who like strength, simplicity, and the truth, we will continue to tell the truth bluntly and without shame, and that will offend all the idiots. And dare I say, we're going to be bordering on 13.39 soon on our battery recharge. The longer I let this thing go. So I think this video went on long enough. A lot of people aren't going to sit here for an entire hour and watch a guy doing tests and rant a little bit about the world. Give you a look under the desk. There's nothing weird going on. Here at MTech Industries, being also partnered with the ESTC group and following the research of Eric Dollard and Ken Wheeler, we don't ever do bullshit on this channel. We are hardcore electric researchers trying to perfect the wireless energy and energy synthesis as much as possible to better the human race and human condition, because no one is coming to save you, no big corporation will give you this knowledge, and the state of the planet will continually to degrade and get worse until the point of implosion, until we master this technology, which is compounded simplicity by its nature. So the end goal of them all is to control you as much as they can. But this technology, by its very nature, is extremely freeing, and that's probably why it was so heavily suppressed in Tesla's time. And as Tesla said, you may own the present, but I own the future. So he was absolutely right. And another look under the desk. There's no way I could be faking anything. We don't ever fake anything on this channel. Hardcore electrical research. Swear on my life up and down. Hardcore research. Plus, I wouldn't build something that fucking elaborate looking to fake anything. So that'll silence all the trolls going, oh, somehow you're faking it. Well, can disconnect everything and give you a good look. You can tell me, ask me how am I faking it. That always recharges. Please tell me how I'm faking it. And people who've replicated it will confirm it's not fake in any way. In fact, when the Slayer Exciter Tesla coil even came out, there were certain electrical engineers in the community who said, that can't work, it's fake. And sure enough, they were proven wrong. But, plus, as a genuine truth seeker, I don't waste my time with fake bullshit. As a truth seeker, I would never waste my time. I'm happy when both proven wrong and right, because it puts me on the right path. But, no, we don't ever waste our time with fake shit. World is too short. Life is too short. World is too miserable and full of scams and stupidity to waste time faking things. So, yeah. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, join the Patreon, and disconnect. So, yeah, thank you, everyone, and join our Patreon if you can. Shout out to all you guys. Appreciate you.